The Shah was gone. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was back, and the Islamic Republic had been realized.
Soon after the revolution triumphed, the great expectations and optimisms and hope on the part of the Iranian people were quickly replaced by disillusions and despair.
It didn't help that executions in revolutionary courts were becoming commonplace. Amir Abbas Hoveyda, Iran's prime minister for 13 years and a close ally of the Shah, was killed by a firing squad after a secret trial. The execution alarmed the international community. But, as former AP journalist Thomas Kent noted in this 1979 radio dispatch, the new regime just didn't care.
The Iranian government spokesman Abbas Amir Entezam held a news conference, and he didn't have much time for the foreign criticism of the Hoveyda execution. He said that Hoveyda was a treasonous person, corrupt to the core, and should have been punished.
What's more, the new regime was enforcing a strict interpretation of Islam. Revolutionary forces stormed bars, breaking bottles of alcohol in the streets. Khomeini also ordered women to wear veils, which continues to this day.
A lot of people supported the revolution because they didn't like the Shah. They thought the regime was corrupt. They thought it was oppressive. So they greeted the revolutionaries in the streets when Khomeini returned to the country and so forth. They were very, very supportive. But they had not bargained for the fact that the regime would be very strong in what they considered the essential trappings of Islam, which is to say the veiling of women and things like that.
Some women welcomed this return to tradition. Elsewhere, though, there was resistance. In northwestern Iran, the Kurds, an ethnic minority group, were happy to see the Shah leave. This sentiment wouldn't last long. Kurds said they wanted autonomy. The Khomeini government labeled them separatists. As the weeks melted into months, relations between the two didn't get any better. An uprising, the biggest in the country, took hold. Kurdish factions clashed with revolutionary forces, but Khomeini wasn't backing down. In August, the Iranian army invaded the Kurdish city of Mahabad with tanks and fighter jets. More than 500 people died. In the early days of the revolution, the Western press had been seen as allies. No longer. Now, the revolutionary government began kicking foreign correspondents out, and local journalists on the ground were a crucial part of that. So on September 1st, AP's new bureau chief, Nicholas Tatro, and AP journalist Irlene Fisher arrived at the Ministry of National Guidance to pick up their credentials. The press chief told them that the authorities might have to lift the press cards of two local reporters. 3 days later, the AP reporters were called back in.
He was sorry to tell us, but he was going to have to take away our credentials and that we would no longer be able to report, and that several of us, myself included, only had 48 hours to get out of the country, and that he had no way to guarantee our safety.
Given the pervasive anti-American sentiment in Iran, this was alarming. So Tatro, Fisher, Kent, and AP reporter Philip Dopoulos scrambled to get out. 2 Iranian reporters were also barred from working for AP at all. Tatro dashed back to his hotel room. When he got there, his passport was gone. He managed to secure a replacement from the U.S. Embassy just in time, and he headed to the airport.
We were really worried about our safety going through that airport. It was a little bit like the movie Argo. Just pretty high tension, worried about what they might ask or take us aside, and that would have been it.
Kent ended up taking a separate flight to Moscow, along with a group of Russian engineers who were also being expelled. It was unclear when, or even if, the plane would leave.
Eventually, we did get on board, and we crossed the border into the Soviet Union, and they announced on the PA system that we've now crossed the Soviet frontier, and I applauded with everyone else because, compared to Tehran, I felt safe.
In the end, all 4 made it out. Behind them, they left a country increasingly hidden from the eyes of the larger world. In the next episode of Revolution in Iran, the AP Bureau reopens, and the U.S. Embassy in Tehran becomes the epicenter of one of the biggest stories in the world.